I'm Stevens. I'm from Haiti originally.
Okay.
Right now, I live in Vancouver, BC, Canada.
Okay.
Right now, I'm an audio technician and I produce a little bit on the side, but I'm on the beginner side, almost you could say.
Okay.
Um, I did go to school for audio engineering, so I do know all about the studio and like
Yeah.
live recording, which is mostly what I did a lot of.
Okay.
But I've been kind of digging into the producing side of things, and I really want to develop more into an artist in that stage. Um,
Okay. Cool. Cool, man. Well, I'm glad you could be part of this, man. Yeah, shoot your questions, man. Whatever you want, man. I hope I can help. Let's do this.
mhm. Yeah, so I'm just like, usually when I start like a project or something like that, I have a hard time of just I get like a loop going and then that's it. And then like that, my brain just almost dies at that stage, and then I
Right.
get the loop, it sounds good, and then I'm like, now what?
Okay. Good. So so give me some background information. What are you using to do your tracks?
Right now I'm using like I use everything. I have a background in everything. So right now I use Ableton
Okay.
and use Logic. Yeah,
Okay.
but mostly Logic right now because it has all the sounds and I do have synths and stuff like that. But
Okay, cool.
I love how the sounds sound in Logic. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, Logic has some very beautiful sounds. Last time I touched Logic, I was really impressed by how great the sounds sound in Logic. So,
Mhm.
hands down, as far as factory sounds that comes with it, I think Logic has some of the best.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you're dealing with a loop, and you're kind of wondering where to go from that. Do you feel like it's just repeating over and over again? Or are you trying to stretch it out
Exactly.
to a song?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about this loop. Is it like just a musical loop? Does it have the whole thing, or is it just musical, or what?
So usually how I start is I'll start with like a PI. I'll start with my chords and then I'll get like a nice sounding chord progression going.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I'll do is I'll put some melodies on top of that. Like
Right.
I'll put like a single melody on top of it, almost like a trap sounding loop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll add the drums and then I'll add like a bass line. And by then I have everything,
Right.
and it's sounding fine. It's just like I don't know where to go from there. Like I don't know like how to structure it. You could say.
Okay. Yeah. So I think a good rule of thumb is to just create two hooks and two verses,
Okay.
right? So intro normally you break it down and not have everything playing on the intro, right? And then come in with the hook, right? Something that has everything in there, something big, you know what I'm saying? And of course, there's an exception to every rule, but I'm just trying to give you something to work with.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
got that intro there, come in with all the loops and all the sounds together, big on that hook, and then what to do to let the artist know or to let yourself know that we're in verse, bring some of that stuff out,
Hmm.
cut it out, let that ride for 8 bars, 16 bars, and let that be your verse, right? Then we're coming back to that second hook. Bring everything back in. Maybe add a little extra. Maybe just take a little bit away and have
Hmm.
all that stuff bumping right
Change
there
it
for
up
that
a little
next
bit.
hook. Then do the same thing on a verse. Take the drums out. Let the music go.
I see, I see.
And then maybe bring the drums back in towards the end of the verse.
Hmm.
Then we're back at hook. And then you can repeat the hook, and then you can fade out.
Yeah. The
Or,
main thing is though, how do you not get it to sound like repetitive? Like
okay,
I've started with like one solid 8 bar loop. I mean, how do
right,
you make a whole song out of that, and not make it sound so repetitive?
right. So the repetitiveness that you can get rid of is basically by adding and taking away. Is how you
Okay.
can get rid of the repetitiveness of it. Because I know dealing with groups and just rhythms and stuff like that, it's easier to do it like that. Another way to get rid of repetitiveness is to figure out some sort of turnaround towards the end of the repeat.
Hmm.
You can do that there. It's like a little bit of a drum fill. Take all the drums out, put in a sample of a drum fill in there, like some
Yeah,
real drums,
yeah.
you know, and then maybe in the verse, start off with the drum fill and then let the verse carry in how I would have naturally done.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, the main key to get rid of repetitiveness is by bringing in sections, taking them out, and then also changing how the melodies goes, or let's put it this way, like maybe the first half of the verse you have one type of melody going with that main
Mm.
musical loop, and then towards the second half of that, take that first melody out and replace it with another melody.
Right. Okay.
Or the first half of the verse, you got one type of rhythm with those same drum sounds or the right loop, and then the second half, do a different loop that complements the first part.
Hmm. Okay,
You
I
know,
see.
you know. So the getting rid of the repetitiveness is not letting it do too much of the same thing too long, and also making changes like what I talked about there. Um, and but honestly, try not to get too concerned about repetitiveness because that, I'll put it this way, just putting music in front of people, there are going to be people that are more inclined to see it more repetitive than what it actually is.
Right. Right.
And then there's going to be people that see it as it being perfect. Don't change a thing.
Hmm.
So there's that as well. So to combat that means going back to building yourself a catalog of tracks.
Right.
Having yourself a catalog of tracks. Well, these are a little bit more repetitive over here.
Hmm.
And then these are more abstract and different over here. And then when you present your tracks as a producer, as a creative, okay, here's 10 right here. Now you're less emotionally attached to not fitting because you got this whole catalog. Now, if they outright don't like 10 or 20 of your tracks, they may not like your production. They may not just like you as a person.
Yeah.
Or they may look at you and say, I mean, I'm just going to be real, just talk about what I've dealt with in this field. It may not have anything to do with you being wrong. And if you got the wrong, if I have a black t-shirt on and because this logo is purple,
Yeah.
I don't know if you really will be looking for today. It's like that. That's the reality you have to live with as a producer.
Hmm.
You know, and you know your stuff hit.
Hmm.
But there's still that human aspect that we have to have our skin built up for, just in case they say, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now that brings me to another point: is
Go
how
ahead.
do you get through that criticism? Because like I make a lot of shit, and like all my stuff is just on SoundCloud, but like it's all on private.
Okay.
But because I'm afraid of like it's almost I'm afraid of what they're gonna think of it and judge
I
me. Like
understand.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm glad you talked about that because that is where I think most music producers struggle the most, and even me sometimes. We wonder about that judgment coming in, tearing the videos apart. Maybe one beat got 1,000 plays, and then the next one you really like only got 3.
Right.
Right. So the important thing, the first step is to unprivatize those things, man, and let the world decide for themselves
Right.
if they like it or not. I think me as a creative person, probably you deal with this at the same thing as well, where we play the tape in our head what they think before it even gets out into before it even gets crystallized. We're like, oh, they aren't gonna like that. They're gonna take this apart. I'm like that still. When I create content, I'm like, oh my God, I want to do something different, but oh man, it's not going to get those views like I want, like I'm used to getting. You understand what I'm saying? But it touches somebody the way I want to touch somebody, and we connect, but I'm not getting the thousands of hits because
But that one connection is, that means more to you than
it's much more important. And then we're looking, it's like a drug. It's like we're looking for that dopamine hit of acceptance with our music production. And we have to wean ourselves off of that taste, because that acceptance, that affirmation of, oh, this is dope, or that affirmation of the numbers looking the way we want them to on SoundCloud, we have to wean ourselves from that. How do we do that? By having a body of work first. 2, we have to remind ourselves to let the market decide for themselves, so that we can free ourselves from thinking about, oh, they're going to like this or not going to like that. And I know it's a challenge because we are mechanical in nature, to where we want to do things that work, and we want the equation. We want to punch in this equation and get this result. We want to put this beat on SoundCloud and get this many plays. I want to make this YouTube video and get these many subscribers off of it. And the problem is that when you think that way, and it's a challenge because that's like a default. That's something I still wrestle with today, that I still fight through today. And we want that result. But once you understand that that's not important, And you have to really learn how to not look at it that way, because that is the main thing that can hinder you from
Hmm.
continuing to putting out the content, from continuing building up that catalog. And
Yeah.
another thing is,
Hmm.
when you have a huge catalog, you care less about somebody not liking the one, because if they don't like the one, there's 50 other options right here.
That's true.
And if you go through these 50 other options and you don't like one, you probably don't like me. And if you
Yeah.
good, now we know. Go find somebody else that fits.
Right.
Because if I stay focused on you not liking 50 of my tracks,
Mm.
I'm going to miss out on another 50 people who actually vibe and ride and die for it.
That's true. Very
You
true.
understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So you always have to think of not everybody's response will be the same. You have to run a numbers game and know that people, it's a human aspect. It's a human, getting people to your music is like a human, there's a human thing that we can't predict, right?
Hmm.
And then also there's a psychological thing that goes on because we're building up from the ground, and ours
Right.
our plays, our streams, our numbers don't look like somebody who's further down the line or who have had better
Exactly.
luck.
Right.
Because some of it's luck too. Sometimes that algorithm hits and they're good to go. And we can't marginalize or devalue ourselves just because we didn't get that result from that algorithm
Hmm.
just so happening to work in their favor.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's why it's important to work on catalog. I'll tell you something I'm pursuing right now. I'm pursuing film and television, right?
Hmm.
And here's a story. The story is I started and I got rejected and I stopped trying. Okay.
Hmm.
I got rejected. I didn't get too much feedback on why I was rejected, and I stopped trying and I stopped pursuing it. And the reason I did that is because I didn't have the experience to know that it's going to take a whole lot of rejections for me
Yeah.
to land that forward and for me to land that placement.
Hmm.
So now I have to get back on that horse and go get rejected again.
Hmm. And you're more prepared for it this time too.
Yeah, I'm more mentally prepared for it now because I understand that's what it takes.
Hmm.
And I can't let that one rejection or two or five rejections paint me as a person as far as what my abilities are,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
because
very.
there's a whole other human being there. There's the opportunity for what we're sending our music to. There's a person that's looking at it. There's how my track sounded that day. It could be the difference between today and tomorrow. If that person heard that track tomorrow, it would have went all the way through and got plays. There's
Mhm.
so many variables that are out of our control. That's why it's so important to focus on the variables that we control. What are
Well,
those variables?
yeah, that
Yeah.
makes.
So we got to focus on what we control. You can control yourself making the content. So we're
Yeah.
going to make the
Yeah.
content, and then we can't control how people respond, but that's okay because we can't focus on the first 10 that don't like it, because there's 90 people behind and we haven't met yet.
Right.
One
Ex-
one thing we will not run out of is people to put our stuff in front of.
Yep. Yep.
We're not going to run out of that. If there's over 1 billion people here, give me 2,000 of them. 2,000 I'm going to ride, but I got to do the work to get to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when you focus on that reality, the way that streams, the people respond to your music will matter less.
Hmm.
It just takes more work to remember that.
I get you. I get you.
And this video will be on the channel so we can, because I probably need to see this
Yeah.
too.
No, for sure. I'm definitely gonna be watching this again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, I had one last question for you. So I bought your pack.
Okay.
The Drake one.
Okay.
The Drake sounding ones. I love the pads on there, and I literally love all the sounds on there.
Sick.
Yeah, and I use that a lot, but I find, I guess maybe I should diversify more. But I use that particular pack a lot, and
Okay.
I find that whenever I have a pad
Uh-huh.
and then I'm putting like a bass line on it, I have a hard time mixing those.
Okay.
Like have like getting the bass to sit right in with the pad.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about that. So pads and bass, here's the thing. So I like to use these as kind of like a ways to kind of give examples, right?
Mhm.
So let's see. So this is the low end of the frequency spectrum. You're an engineer, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is your low end spectrum, and this is it. The thing is, it's like it's very hard to get one to sit in the mix of each other if the sound of the notes of the pads and the notes of the bass are right here
Mm-hmm.
in the same band. You know, understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So it's not necessarily a mix of volume, because this is volume right here. This is low. This is high. So this is your pads there. So one thing that I like to do to get into the mix to make sure you keep those notes on the bass line low enough so that they never get here in that same frequency bands.
Where do you cut your bass? The pad. Like, where's your cutoff for it on the frequency band?
I usually cut off probably above 300.
Okay.
Above 300 ish there. But here's the thing though. I play to mix. And this is what I mean by that. I will play only the notes that will get me in that band before I EQ it.
Right. Okay. So if you have to play an octave higher, then you'll play that.
Then you do that.
Got you.
Then now you're EQing by what you play instead of by mix.
I got you.
You understand what I'm saying? Keep that bass line low, and you can go up on that bass line too. Sometimes you can break that rule. Let them intertwine sometimes. You understand what I'm saying? But always like to keep it middle. So if I got pads and they're low, and I know I got a bass patch that's kind of high up in there, and they're kind of, I'll go down an octave on that bass patch, or I'll go up an octave on the pad.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But I typically keep the pads pretty low, pretty medium to low in the mix versus everything.
Yeah, just like I said, I love the Toronto sound, like, with the really melodic pads and stuff like that. So I really love that to be up front.
Yeah.
And I would like the bass to sit back, almost like a round bass sit in the back.
Yeah.
You can still pick out all the notes.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And in that case, if you want to keep that bass mellow, you can filter. You can always put a cutoff on that bass to kind of make it sound more mellow on there. The same thing with the pads. Thin to Ten came out with a plugin called Underwater with that picture of that Drake on it that I you joke on my live streams, but it functions very well. It's a low pass filter. It cuts so sharp, like the bell curve.
Yeah,
it's so sharp on it that you can really have a lot of fun with it. That's why I usually like to do to filter that down.
Awesome.
So
what? One more question is,
go ahead.
What's your process when it comes to drums?
Yeah. Okay, so I will typically just do a hat first. Hats set the tone for. Hats provide a reference beyond the metronome for when you're creating a track. And I always like to go softer than I think that they should be, because hats cut very well on cell phone speakers. They will just chop through everything. So always bring them down because they are so aggressive.
Yeah.
So I'll do a hat first. Then let's do a snap or a clap with that. Then I do a kick.
Okay. Really?
Yeah. I don't do the kick because it's almost like when I'm making the beat, it's like I'm listening to the song. So I'm listening to the song, like it's almost like I'm listening to a song and I'm vibing with it. And then when that kick hit, we in there now. But I don't give myself that dopamine hit first. I save it for later, and I say because between the kick and the bass line, that's where you get the most that's where you get the highest hit from.
Right. So why wouldn't you start with that first though?
Because I think it all goes downhill from there.
Okay.
I think I give it all away to me too fast when I do it that way.
Okay.
And I like to discover it, and I also want to see what else can I do without. It's almost like it's easy to just go to the kick and the bass line first.
That's true, and I feel like it's harder when you have you have a hi-hat coming in, and then you have like a snare, and then the kick comes in. Like it's harder when the kick comes in like later. Like I feel
yeah. It's almost like I'm producing how I think the song will go when it's finished. So I'll start with the percussion and background stuff first, even melodies first. Like sometimes I have a melody and chords I play first before I even do the drums. And then I see, okay, where did the drums fit there in that way? And the only reason I do that is to keep myself interested, because if I keep using the same formula all the time, I'll get bored.
Yeah. I also had someone told me that it's better to start with your melodies and your melodic stuff first, but rather than the drums,
Yeah.
because when you make your drums, they're already keyed.
Right.
So it's a lot harder to find an instrument that fits with your drums rather than finding a drum that fits with your instrument. Do you
Yeah.
kind of see what I mean?
I agree. I agree with that. My philosophy, my stance is be like water, my friend. So I will, if it's Tuesday, I might play a melody first and hit record on that first.
Mm.
If it's Thursday, I might do just drum loops first, right? And maybe it's Sunday. I'll just chop up a vocal.
It's
Let's
just
see what
whatever
that
you
does.
feel. There's no like set.
No,
There's
I
no
think it's
set. This is what I'm gonna do. It's
yeah.
just what.
I think it's best to not have a set format. I think it becomes useful, but I think
Mm.
it becomes limiting because then the accidents that make the beat sound doper than you expected are less likely to happen that way.
That I find that too. Actually,
Yeah.
that's one thing I find in my
Yeah.
producing.
When I mean, I tell you, man, when you grab a loop somewhere, some sound for something, and you just slap it in there, you don't know if it worked, and then it
Mhm.
ride.
Mhm.
That's
That's what
that's
happens.
that's it. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Well,
Mhm.
cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming through here and sign up. Let people know where they can find you and find your content, man.
So I'm on Instagram at Stevens26,
Okay.
and I'm a photographer too. So you'll find all my photography up there. And I'm on SoundCloud also at Stevens26. So
Okay.
yeah, and Stevens STEEVENS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give them that spelling. Well, cool, man. Well, thank you again,
Thank
man.
you so much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to give us like this information. And I really
Absolutely.
appreciate your work and everything that you do for us, man. Thank
No
you.
problem, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'll see you on the flip side, man. Thank you, man.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
man.
Peace
Appreciate
out.
it.